So the whole concept's a complete fallacy.
Anything can hurt you.
This is the Godfather of cinema, and I thank you for watching part 1 of my 4-part film analysis of director Ingmar Bergman's 1974 film, Scenes from a Marriage. A well-off middle-class couple is the subject of a magazine article on the perfect marriage. Marianne and Johan seem to have everything, at least on the surface. Good jobs, a nice home, 2 beautiful daughters, good relationships with their families, active social lives. Marianne and Johan rarely disagree about anything, so it comes as a complete shock to Marianne when Johan comes home from work one day to tell her, completely out of the blue, that he is unhappy and has been so for years, and that he is leaving her for a younger woman at work named Paula. Abandoned, cold, and afraid, Marianne can only speculate as to what went wrong in a marriage that just the day before seemed picture perfect. Scenes from a Marriage begins with Johan and Marianne being interviewed in the living room of their home by Mrs. Palm for a popular women's magazine, the focus of which is the ideal couple. Mrs. Palm begins the interview and Johan answers her question as to how he and his wife met. Each had a large circle of friends. They attended lots of parties. They were politically active and had both done some theater acting in college.
Lady, shall I lie in your lap?
Marianne was married at the same time that he was involved with a pop singer. Marianne lost her baby and divorced her first husband around the same time that he broke up with the pop singer. And being that they were both miserable, lonely, and insecure, Marianne suggested that they date each other. And though they were not in love when they moved in together, they were in love by the time that they got married 6 months later. And because they both had good jobs and got along well with family and friends, everyone assumed that they were the ideal couple.
So the whole concept's a complete fallacy.
Okay.
On Mrs. Palm's question of love, Marianne believes that couples should have moderate expectations and that affection, comradeship, tolerance, and a sense of humor are of greater importance than love.
So the whole concept's a complete fallacy.
As a family lawyer, she has seen too many divorces because of unrealistic expectations. Therefore, she believes that there would be fewer divorces if couples were simpler and gentler with each other. Following this interview, Johan and Marianne invite a couple of friends over for dinner. Johan reads the interview they did with Mrs. Palm to Peter and Katarina. The article describes himself and Marianne as the perfect couple because of how well they work together, like their friends Peter and his wife Katarina, who also seem like the perfect couple because they work well together. For instance, Peter writes for a technical magazine and his wife Katarina knows him so well that she once wrote an article on his behalf while he was away in Germany, in addition to being great business partners. Peter and Katarina also enjoy each other in the bed, and yet, in spite of how well they seem to work together from a practical standpoint, Peter and Katarina despise each other. and air out their dirty laundry in Marianne's and Johan's perfectly happy home. Katarina recalls that time when she woke up and found Peter on the 8-story ledge of their bedroom window. And when she dared him to jump off of that ledge, he changed his mind because he did not intend to let her off the hook that easily. And to piss her off even more, he decided to quit smoking, which made him even crankier and harder to live with. But for all of the valid reasons to justify Peter and Katarina getting divorced, they also listed as many valid reasons to justify staying married. After all, they have a business that they built together in Italy.
So we're both really passionate about the work we do, and
They tried working together and living apart once, but it did not work because Peter is impotent with other women, and Katarina truly believes that Peter is the only man who can fully understand her. Therefore, they are inseparable and, worst of all, hopeless.
Okay.
One day, out of the clear blue sky, Marianne informs Johan that she is pregnant.
Jag är med barn.
He had asked her 3 weeks ago if she was pregnant, but she told him that she wasn't. Even though she knew that there was a good chance that she was because she had stopped taking the pill and her period was late. She did not seek his input into her decision to stop taking the pill because it was her body and her decision.
The state means to control our bodies.
Now, she could not decide by herself whether to have the baby or to get an abortion. Johan is evasive and capitulates to Marianne to make the decision to have the baby on her own, since she will be the one suffering all of the pain and joy bringing it into the world on her own.
Jag ska vara ärlig hela tiden. Kan du inte säga?
However, his nonchalant attitude upsets Marianne, and he makes things even worse by forcing himself to appear cheery and excited
Faktiskt, det ska bli ganska trevligt med lugn till.
about her news until finally, out of sheer frustration, Johan exposes his true feelings. They do not need the aggravation nor the expense of a baby right now. Marianne disagrees with him and exposes her true feelings as well. As far as she is concerned, love and not comfort nor the expense of bringing a baby into their marriage should be the only thing that matters. She believes that a baby could bring joy and excitement into their marriage, which has become so comfortable and predictable that she can no longer feel it. Again, going back to the interview with Mrs. Palm, Marianne and Johan seem like the perfect couple because they have good jobs, they are on good terms with family and friends, they are healthy, and they agree on almost everything, and they never fight. In fact, whenever Marianne does become emotional, Johan knows how to help her smother those emotions and behave in a way that is rational and acceptable. In the interview at the beginning of the film, Marianne told Mrs. Palm that practical matters like affection, comradeship, tolerance, and a sense of humor are more essential to a relationship than love. However, this is not the case in this particular scene.
Mira, what about you?
Sorry, what was the...
As Marianne is unable to bear and accept Johan's true feelings about her unborn baby, she gets an abortion, which they agree is in their best interest. They also agree to sweep her abortion under the rug, so to speak, by telling her mother that she had to go to the hospital to have some minor surgery. But going through with this abortion, something that Johan wanted her to have, awakens Marianne to the fact that every moment of their lives are written on little squares, and that a baby could have added novelty to their marriage and disrupted their routines. Therefore, she makes a vow to change everything. She and Johan will skip their customary dinner with her parents on Sunday. She won't be going to the fashion show on Friday with Johan's sister. She will cancel Friday's dinner engagement with the Bergmans. She wants Johan to turn down a cocktail party invitation with the Peruvian ambassador as well. She won't go to see Johan's mother at her French house. She won't go to the theater this evening, and she would like for Johan to take off work next week and take her somewhere, anywhere, just to get away from it all. In the interview at the beginning of the film, Marianne tells Mrs. Palm that she and Johan have good jobs, that they are on good terms with family and friends. They are healthy and they agree on almost everything, and that although she and Johan may quarrel, he is slow to anger and knows how to help her suppress her emotions. Their lives are perfectly organized. Each moment of every day is written on a little square, and yet their lives are empty, and they blame their unhappiness on their mothers. Johan quotes a verse out of the Bible to Marianne, which states that a man shall leave his father and his mother, cleave unto his wife, and be one flesh. And motivated by this quote from the Bible, Marianne phones her mother to cancel Sunday dinner. However, she does not go through with this impulse after her mother complains about how much everyone looked forward to seeing her and Johan on Sunday. Marianne hangs up the phone, and Johan concedes their bid for independence by announcing that their revolution was smothered at birth, like the child Marianne aborted because she cared more about Johan's opinion than her own. One day, a middle-aged woman stops by the law office to see Marianne. Mrs. Jacobi has been married for 20 years. Her husband is kind, dependable, conscientious, and teaches school. They have never quarreled. They have 3 grown children. They like music. They belong to the Chamber Music Society and even play music together. They have never had affairs, and to everyone who knows them, Mrs. Jacobi and her husband have the ideal marriage, as Marianne and Johan seem to have the ideal marriage, and as Peter and Katarina seem to have the ideal marriage. Even though Marianne tells Mrs. Palm in the interview at the beginning of the film that affection, comradeship, tolerance, and a sense of humor are most important in marriage, they are, she explains to Johan concerning her decision to become pregnant, not as important as the love that their rituals and obligations have taken out of their marriage. And this is why when Mrs. Jacobi explains to Marianne that existing in a marriage without love has robbed her of her ability to see, smell, hear, and feel, Marianne can relate because her own marriage has also robbed her of her ability to see, smell, hear, and feel. Mrs. Jacobi's sad marriage story prompts Marianne to call Johan to ask him for something out of their normal routine, to take her out to lunch. Later, Johan and Marianne recalled their college years. Back then, they were rebellious, and Marianne was confident in her ability to care for kids, manage a household, and hold down a job without a man. In addition to being rebellious back then, they had faith in the future of humanity. They participated in the May Day parade, and Marianne was active in political causes.
All of us must stand up together.
But the fondest of these memories for Johan are that they did not care about doing things that their parents did not want them to do, because back then Marianne wasn't the calm, even-tempered woman that she became after they got married. But now she is so insecure of herself that she cannot and will not make the decision to have a baby without Johan's input. She had wanted the baby but aborted it after Johan told her in so many words that he did not want her to have the baby. As a girl, Marianne had no qualms about defying the will of her parents. However, as a grown woman, Marianne now feels obligated to go along with the will of her parents by visiting them for dinner every Sunday, whether she wants to or not. And as a woman who was once passionate, outspoken, believed in humanity, and fought against social injustice, Marianne has now become secure and comfortable with the dull state of her marriage and life itself, because, as she explains to Mrs. Palm in the interview at the beginning of the film, she and Johan have good jobs. They are on good terms with family and friends, and they are both healthy. In fact, if she had her way, it would remain summer all year long and never change. But like Mrs. Jacoby, who also seems to have the perfect marriage, Johan and Marianne's security and comfort have deprived them of their humanity, their individuality, their spontaneity, and most of all, their love. In Sidney Lumet's 1976 film Network, news anchor Howard Beale,
God damn it! My life has value!
becomes an evangelist and prophet for telling his television audience that they are powerful. But later in the film, Beale receives an epiphany from the chairman of the television station, who lays out the corporate cosmology of the world. Afterwards, Beale goes back on TV to tell his audience that the individual is finished because television is transforming them into humanoids, and being that this is exactly what the people do not want to hear, the ratings for Beale's show falls to the basement, and he goes from being a prophet to a pariah, killed by revolutionaries on live television. Howard Beale's fate in Network reminds me of that famous line from A Few Good Men.
You can't handle the truth!
And likewise, neither Marianne nor Johan can handle the truth. For instance, Johan becomes upset when Marianne tells him that she does not enjoy having sex with him the way that she used to, and Marianne also becomes upset when Johan tells her that he is not interested in having another child with her. And because neither Johan nor Marianne can handle each other's truthful opinions and feelings, they resort to lies and deceitful appearances, and these lies and deceitful appearances result in contradictions. This concludes part one of my analysis of director Ingmar Bergman's 1974 film Scenes from a Marriage. If you liked it, I'd appreciate you leaving a thumbs up. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Godfather of Cinema and hit the bell to receive a notification when I release part two of my analysis of this great film. I will see you soon.